The War on Terror saw United States forces engaged in various operations throughout Asia, primarily the Middle East, as well as parts of Africa. However, by and large, the two primary ones were Afghanistan and Iraq. It was here less conventional methods and more asymmetrical warfare became more commonplace, leading to new demands and requirements, as well as a change of tactics and equipment for U.S. troops, with perhaps one of the most prevalent and deadly being the rise of IEDs, or improvised explosive devices. This, coupled with ambushes of patrols, meant explosives and subsequent fire became a much greater threat, leading to innovations in fire-retardant gear. Each branch approached this in their own way, but some were much more successful and widespread, while others quietly fell to the wayside, with one of the latter being the U.S. Air Force's ABE, or Airman Battle Ensemble, a component of the ABSG, or Airman Battle System Ground. Before diving into the lesser-known topic, we must thank the sponsor of this video, Venture Surplus. Specializing in U.S. military surplus and related gear, Venture is the place to go for it, as they have a huge assortment of items from the small, such as P38 can openers and waterproof gas mask bags, to larger things like various models of personal tents and JP8 fuel handlers coveralls. At one time, they even sold ABE coats. So if you're looking for common and small, large and obscure, or any combination of other U.S. gear, be sure to check them out at venturesurplus.com. And while there, remember to use the coupon code HISTORY10 to get 10% off of your order. Thank you guys, and now let's get back to it. In many prior videos, we've talked about how the US military saw all of their branches update their camouflage patterns and uniforms around the turn of the millennia, seeing some cuts and patterns work great while others failed colossally. When it came to the Air Force, their changes to both leaned more towards the failure side. Unveiling their ABUs, or Airman Battle Uniform, around 2006, this new uniform more or less was an updated BDU bearing their digital tiger stripe camouflage that took all the colors, +1, slate, of the Army's universal camouflage pattern, which was anything but. It wasn't long until issues arose that were compounded by factors found throughout areas of the Middle East, namely excessive heat, and for those operating in hot zones, the risk of IEDs and the aforementioned fire risks. Though frequent improvements and changes to the ABUs tried to mitigate some of these problems, it was clear the uniform was not really suited for those who may find themselves in direct combat or involved in outside-the-wire operations, that being a term to describe the area beyond the secure perimeter of a military base or installation. Facing similar issues, the Army had also been looking in ways to try and improve the fire retardancy level of their uniforms, and in 2007 the two branches worked in tandem, leading to the Army developing their FRACU, short for Flame Retardant Army Combat Uniforms. Naturally, not long after, in early 2008, the Air Force followed suit with their ABSG, which featured at its center, quite literally, the ABE. Consisting of a base layer of undergarments and an outer foul weather layer of a jacket and trousers, the most prevalent was the middle, which featured a coat, trousers, and combat shirt. Now, as just mentioned, the issue they faced was twofold, with the first and foremost being fire retardancy, but also an emphasis on utility and increased functionality, with the focus on it working in conjunction with body armor. What's interesting is that these are called ABEs rather than enhanced ABUs or something along those lines, and the Air Force wanted to emphasize that they were an ensemble and not a uniform, as in a September 2008 article introducing the project, the ABE will be unit-controlled issued equipment and will only be worn by select airmen based on their assigned mission. The Air Force will issue an ABE only if it is needed. In the same article, it was stated that it was more or less a tactical fire-resistant adaptation of the current ABU. So that means that focus was being put on making it not only fire-retardant, but more suitable for users with body armor, something that many other branches had thought of when designing their new uniforms from the start, i.e. shoulder and angled chest pockets. And so designs began being worked on, though not much info about them prior to these general release statements is known. But this photo from Shaw Air Force Base gives us a glimpse of a test fit model, which looks to have the collar borrow its design from the Army combat uniform, making you think that it would possibly adopt more elements of it, which is true, but in a very strange way. But before breaking it down, it's worth noting that there were actually two versions, though due to both having 2008 fiscal year contracts, it's a bit hard to say for certain whether it was a case of one replacing another or the two versions were being tested around the same time before ultimately one was selected. Considering one version ended up being made as a part of at least 3 different contracts between 2008 and 2009, coupled with references of early wear testing before these began being issued on a larger scale, it is a safe bet that one superseded the other. Whatever the case though, we'll will differentiate them in the same manner their accompanying combat shirts were identified, Type 1 and Type 2. Being something of a lesser-seen version, Type 1 appears to have only been produced by SNC Telecommunications LLC under a single contract. The coat featured a lot of the same elements as the ABU, such as a fold-down style collar, a button-up front closure bearing a single pen slot at the top, 4 squared torso pockets secured by buttons, reinforced elbows, and adjustable button cuffs. From there, though, the changes, or rather additions, become more obvious, specifically the addition of a piece of rectangular-shaped hook and loop material over the wearer's upper left pocket, which would be used for identification badge patches much in the vein of older Air Force-issued BDUs and flight suits, which specified individuals' name, rank, and so on, which removed the need for others, such as shoulder rank and name tapes. And the most obvious, the addition of 4 pockets, 2 on each sleeve. The ones by the shoulder saw a single compartment that was open and closed via a vertical zipper, while the ones down by the cuffs were the same, though a bit smaller, while also having an external pouch bearing a long flap that was secured by hook and loop material. The idea behind the various sleeve pockets was that users could use and access them much easier while wearing vests, body armor, and other gear that would otherwise make accessing the standard torso pockets a bit of a challenge. Inside, the collar tag simply said the size, while the lower one gave you standard washing instructions, manufacturers, contract numbers, and fabric composition. Moving to the trousers, these were perhaps the most peculiar, as you'd think they would be based on their ABU counterparts since the coats were. Well, actually no. In fact, they're almost a spitting image of the Army combat uniform ones from a cut and even feature standpoint. Around the top by the waist, they had 2 inset waist pockets, belt loops, a zippered button fly, an internal adjuster cord, and 2 rear button pockets. Moving down the legs, though, you can really start to see how they shared similar features to the ACUs, as the thigh cargo pockets were angled and featured something of a cover flap, while strangely also included the same stitches as them but were not billowed, meaning they really couldn't expand or compress, allowing for varying levels of items to be held in them. To make it even weirder, the wearer's left pocket had a horizontal zipper located along the same opening as the ACUs, but on the right it was vertical based on the inner side, meaning this pocket had a non-functional faux flap. Essentially, these pockets were made to look like ones on the ACUs but lacked many of the features and capabilities. Continuing down, these had reinforced knee and seat areas, but also another pair of zippered pockets, each of which had a single smaller pocket with flaps secured by hook and loop. Finally, at the ends were adjusters that were also secured by hook and loop material. As with the tops, their tags showed the same information. That brings us to the Type 2s, which appeared in at least 3 contracts between 2008 and 9, making them the more commonly encountered version. The coats remained mostly the same, with the only changes being the upper sleeve pockets were now a bit longer, while the lower cuff pockets were increased in length but decreased in width, while also seeing the removal of the external secondary pouch. On top of this, their zippers now match the ones seen with the trousers rather than the ones commonly used with flight suits, being black metal, and finally the adjustable cuffs were shortened in height and were switched from buttons to hook and loop material. As for the trousers, they remain unchanged. Now, it is worth noting there are a few differences between contracts. Though most were made by SNC, at least one was made by Proper International Inc. However, the biggest difference came down to fabric composition, as between them there were at least 2 mixes, one that saw 38% Airman material, 32% nylon, and 30% cotton. This was seen with both Type 1s and 2s, with the other being 43% Nomex, 30% nylon, and 27% cotton, which was only seen with Type 2s. So all of this seemingly points to them playing around with the flame retardant capabilities of the fabric during their production and testing period. Moving quickly to their accompanying combat shirts, these look to have followed the same changes as the coats and bore the same contract numbers. Type 1, technically just the Airman battle shirt, again based its general design on the then standard US Army equivalent, but had its pocket design and layout mirror that of the Type 1 coat, seeing upper sleeve pockets and lower cuff ones that also included smaller exterior hook and loop secured ones, while also seeing padded elbows and hook and loop adjuster cuffs. Type 2, which was actually referred to as the Airman battle shirt Type 2, did the same by doing away with those external ones and adjusting the dimensions of the pocket some. In both cases, the performance fabric was made by Massif, while the shirts were manufactured by the respective contract winners, those being SNC and Proper. From available reports and articles, these began being issued in limited numbers towards the end of 2008, with larger circulation beginning around February 2009, with a testing period planned for around 18 to 24 months. Follow-up reports on this said a few thousand sets were planned for this start date, with as many as 10,000 more coming in the later part of the year, with the Air Force more or less going from there. Many who received these actually found them useful, and feedback on them was generally positive, though some accounts described them as a bit heavy and baggy. Though it seems a more common complaint was the actual actual digital tiger stripe camouflage pattern printed on them. Thankfully, a solution to this would come around the same time, but not due to the Air Force, but rather the Army. As mentioned in a few other videos, with many watching this one also probably aware that towards the end of the 2000s, the US Army had realized their UCP design wasn't really working all that well in most environments, leading to another round of camouflage testing, ultimately resulting in the licensing of Multicam, which they designated as OEF-CP, or Operation Enduring Freedom Camouflage Pattern, though often referred to as OCP, which just nested OEF into the O. Printed on fire retardant ACUs, these would begin being issued to soldiers participating in Operation Enduring Freedom, that being the official name for the US's involvement in Afghanistan, thus the name. Now fielding a much more effective pattern on uniforms that had proven to be reliable, protecting wearers from flames and also bugs as they were treated with insect repellent, the Air Force took notice. Beginning issuing in 2010, the Air Force was only just ramping up their ABEs, and this is where things started getting confusing. One May 13, 2013 article published by Time magazine titled Uniform Insanity had an airman essentially describe his experience with uniforms between 2009 and 2011, stating how he was initially given ABUs stateside, but when he was sent to Afghanistan in May 2011, he was told they were not authorized for what he would be doing. So he was given a set of ABEs and told he could only wear them once in Afghanistan, but first encountered problems with the set, namely wrong sizes and an improperly produced battle shirt which had 2 left arms. Getting many but not all of the pieces replaced in time for his deployment, once he arrived, he was told he needed to get some OCPs, and within 2 months he had 4 sets of them, which he wore for the remainder of his tour. On top of this, he wasn't allowed to wear any combat shirts in either digital tiger stripe or multicam, as those were to be worn by an even smaller select few. Once back home, everything he had went out the window and he was again required to wear his ABUs. That full article can be found in the description, and to sum it all up, the title for it is perfect. So where does this leave us? Well, the policy changes, of course. In September of 2010, the Air Force made it clear that the ABSG and its accompanying ABEs were on their way out the door, but very slowly. According to a September 2012 Government Accountability Office report titled Warfighter Support, DoD should improve development of camouflage uniforms and enhance collaboration among the services. A thorough breakdown of branch camouflage and uniforms was performed and described, with a section stating that 2 years prior, in September of 2010, Air Force uniform policy approved those on-ground combat missions beyond the perimeter of a base to wear the uniform of their assigned or aligned unit, and directs all other Air Force personnel deployed to Afghanistan to wear the Army's OCP uniform or the FRACU if the OCP uniform is not available. If neither uniform is available, the policy authorizes personnel to wear the ABSG. So even before 2011, the Air Force put their ABEs at the bottom of the pecking order of uniforms in Afghanistan, with this policy more or less staying in place, with the end goal of OEF-CP ACUs replacing all others, becoming the standard uniform of those deployed there regardless of missions, duties, and locations. And this eventually came to pass, though many years and another camouflage design later, when the Air Force began issuing Scorpion W2, also known as OCP, or Operational Camouflage Pattern, in 2018, not to be confused with OEF-CP, also known as OCP, as their standard issue camouflage and field uniform, following in the footsteps of the Army, which had done the same beginning in 2015. On August 28, 2017, an updated Dress and Appearance of AFCENT Air Force Personnel document was released, which essentially lays out policies primarily for field uniforms and those in theaters of operation. Whereas prior versions made references to the ABSG and ABEs, the system was absent from it, essentially making them no longer an authorized uniform. But if by some chance they continued on in some small way, by April of 2021, the digital tiger stripe camouflage pattern was no more, meaning anything and everything with its design was no longer authorized to wear. Today, OCP in an updated ACU design are available in both a standard ripstop as well as flame retardant material, and are the standard in the Army, Air Force, and even the Space Force, meaning there's no more camouflage chaos nor uniform uncertainty, for the most part. The Air Force has also moved to greatly improve their tactical loadouts for airmen in more direct combat roles, and things seem to have improved. However, it took quite a few hurdles and speed bumps to reach that point, and the ABSG and Airman Battle Ensemble are now just scattered oddities mixed together in a sea of Airman Battle uniforms and other digital tiger stripe pieces. But hopefully this video shed some light on this lesser-known uniform. Sorry, ensemble. Today, many of them can still be found floating around, and since they technically only reached the testing phase and were never officially standardized, there's always the possibility some variant or oddity between the contracts, items, and versions will appear, so keep an eye out. But we'd again like to thank the guys at Venture Surplus for sponsoring this one. If you found it interesting and enjoyable, perhaps tap that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet gotten to it. If you're not feeling it, that's all fine and good. Just be sure to head on back soon for more of the history of, right here on Uniform History.